Y'all, 2021 is days away. Hallelujah. I am so excited for this fresh start. I'm sure you are too. I know this year wasn't what we expected, and maybe there are some goals you didn't get to. That's totally okay, and I want to help. That's why I'm back this week with therapist and professor Dr. Judy to talk about how we can achieve our goals this new year. This is our conversation. I think you honestly unlocked the key to happiness for all of us. In that one quote that's in the value section, true happiness comes from pursuit of goals that align with your deepest values. I've never heard happiness defined like that before. I feel like it's always described in a very elusive way where it's like sand that you can hold onto for a second, but it just slips through your fingers.
Right. And I think that that's why the pursuit of happiness is such a struggle for almost everyone, because you're chasing the kind of happiness, what we call hedonic happiness, that only lasts moments, if not minutes. It's that sense of happiness that you get when you first take a bite of a really good meal. It's that first big paycheck that you get. It's the feeling that you get when you first get off the plane and you're on vacation. But those things don't present opportunities for everlasting happiness. And the kind of happiness we should try to cultivate is a type that we can keep going. And that's why really pursuing goals that align with your deepest values is such a big key here, because then even when the going does get tough, sometimes you have those mixed emotions, like that movie Inside Out, where feelings are mixed. Like you don't just have pure happiness and pure sadness and pure anger, you have mixes of feelings. And so you can in fact be in the middle of a really tough time in your pursuit of goals. It's a challenge, but still feel at the same time a deep sense of gratitude and gratification from what you're doing. And that's the kind of happiness that we should all be seeking, because that type of happiness doesn't really have a cap. It's exponential, it's everlasting. And as long as you keep an eye on your values, you're always going to have the ability to tap into that type of happiness.
Yeah, I feel like despite everything really hard that's come out of the year, that has been one of the blessings kind of in disguise, is this year has really revealed to us what's important. Can you talk about why it's important to know your values and to have a value-centric view of happiness?
Yeah, it's really important to know your values, because without them, we're kind of like people without compasses. Like we don't know what direction in life we're traveling. And that's what I like to describe values as, is a direction that you'd like to travel. So goals are like the signposts. They're like the exits that you pull off of a freeway. You might stop to look at a landmark. You might stop to go to the bathroom, get fuel, get some food, but then you go right back on the highway and you still head towards that same destination. And that's really what I think values are. It's like the goals are the things that you stop off for on the way to pursuing your values, but you're never done pursuing your values. You're constantly thinking about traveling towards that destination. And so the wonderful thing though is that you can have a day where you didn't reach a lot of your goals. Maybe you set all these projects up, you're like, I'm gonna get done today. Okay, you didn't. But when you visit with your top values, you can still feel like I had a great day, because you honored those values in your pursuit of those goals, even if you didn't finish them. So for example, if one of your highest values is integrity, at the end of the day, you didn't finish that project. But part of the reason is you've been taking your time, being really thoughtful about the project, because you want to make sure that it is given the type of attention and thoughtfulness it needs before you turn it in. And so even though you might be a little disappointed you didn't meet the deadline, you still feel really good about how you lived that day, because you're thinking, but I spent time on this project to make sure I did it right.
With that view of happiness, where it's not just about maximizing rewards and minimizing threats, is there also an importance within that to not numb yourself from the hard things, to actually feel them?
Absolutely. I think, again, our society is so insistent on avoiding feelings and suppressing them. It's very important that we understand that feelings are there for a reason. They're adaptive, they're part of our survival mechanism. And if we didn't have negative feelings, we wouldn't even know what positive feelings were. And oftentimes, negative feelings give us a understanding of what's going on and what's important, something that needs to be addressed. And so I really encourage people just to learn distress tolerance strategies, where you just learn to sit with your uncomfortable feelings and ride them like waves in the ocean, understand that they'll come and go. And yeah, sometimes they're going to feel more difficult, it's going to be more arduous. But then the less you struggle with them, the more you're going to be able to achieve that feeling of calm and understand that you can tolerate negative feelings when they come up. And that gives you a sense of pride and joy, and also that feeling that you've developed an important skill set.
What are some practical ways that we can make sure we're remembering and revisiting what our values are and actually walking them out in our lives every day?
Well, I have a values card store in my book, and you can also get a free version of it at my website, drjudyho.com. And the values card store is great. It's a visceral way of understanding what your top values are. And I encourage people to do that every couple of weeks because sometimes your values will shift and sometimes certain priorities will come up that causes those values to shift. But once you do know what your top 3 to 5 values are, a really easy way to keep in touch with them every day is to do a values checkup at the end of the day. So think about your top 3 values and ask yourself, did I do something in service of this value today? And if you did, awesome. But if one value got missed, then you affirm that you will do something in the next 24 hours to honor that value and decide what that thing will be. And so doing that exercise is something that takes only 2 to 3 minutes out of your evening. And it can be such a great reflection because it gives you that sense of, oh, I did something that's really meaningful for me. But also, if you didn't get to tap into your values, sometimes you can connect that to, oh, well, that's why I felt so stressed today. I didn't really get to do that. And so tomorrow, I'll make sure that I definitely reach out to at least one loved one by phone, even if it's just for 5 minutes, even if I'm busy, because I know how important that value of community is to me. Another way to keep in touch with your values in your mind is to make visceral reminders based on your senses. So, one of my favorite things is the values playlist, making a playlist with songs that stand in for your top 5 to 10 values. And then that can be a fun activity. You can play your values playlist while you're cleaning or getting ready for the day or working out. You can also have images, maybe screensavers for your computer and your phone that stand for a certain value so that whenever you go to that device, you're again reminded very viscerally of that value. And I think that those are the types of things that I would really advocate for people to do because they're kind of fun too, kind of coming up with these types of things and ways in which to honor your values and have reminders for yourself throughout the day.
Yeah, I feel like the values approach to happiness is also super helpful for people who maybe feel like it's selfish to just want to pursue their own version of happiness because when it's connected to your values, it's usually connected to other people as well.
Exactly. And I think that that's why it increases a sense of connection when you do get in touch with your values. It gives you that sense of being connected to something that's bigger than yourself. And we all need that so much right now.
Another one of the things I'm grateful you talked about towards the end of the book is kind of the myth around the power of positive thinking. Because I'm someone who struggles with visualizing and 100% believing in myself sometimes. But I like that that means that doesn't necessarily mean I'm not going to reach a goal. Can you talk a little bit about finding that balance between visualizing and then acting on your goals and how that works with the mental contrasting exercise you talk about?
Yeah, the mental contrasting exercise is important because it really gives us a much more specific sense of our goals. And it really gives us that roadmap of this is why I want the goal so much. And this is what I'm looking forward to when I actually end up being able to reach that goal. But also, what are the obstacles that get in the way? And that's why that mental contrasting exercise is so good because we sometimes don't think about it. What are the things that might prevent us from getting to this really coveted place that we want? So it's really important that during the mental contrasting exercise, you spend time imagining and visualizing you reaching your goal. There's a lot of research that shows that the more you use that kind of visualization, the more likely you are to reach that goal. But also that you include this other component of like, what are the things that might get in the way of it? And then make a plan to address those components before they happen. And when people do it that way, even though the second part of the visualization might not sound as fun because you don't get to think about the positive things, you have to think about sort of the roadblocks. But thinking about those roadblocks allows you to be able to plan ahead. And it also allows you to be able to be aware of them when they start happening. And then you can basically intervene right there and switch your tactics so that you don't get too far off track. And that's why mental contrasting is so important. That particular type of visualization exercise is so key to all of this.
Speaking on visualization, can you talk about your version of a vision board and how that works?
Yeah, so my version of the vision board is a blueprint, and the blueprint is really important because it's specific. It's like the building blocks of a house. When you look at the blueprint, you will be able to see everything that we've been talking about so far. We're going to be able to see the life factors, your thought triggers, the behaviors you're trying to change, what's getting in the way of you changing them, how to actually change those thoughts and behaviors, what values are the most important to you and how they feed into the goal that you've set for yourself. All of those things will be on one convenient place. And the more you visit with it, the more it becomes real for you and the more able you'll be able to implement it with as high of a skill as possible.
And a lot of the times when we're dealing with those feelings that can lead us to self sabotage, like anger or sadness, we'll be upset with ourselves for feeling upset, or we'll be angry with ourselves for feeling angry. Do you have a word of encouragement for someone who's just at the beginning of their journey to stopping self sabotage who might be feeling that way?
Yeah, it's really hard. Sometimes we just judge ourselves so harshly, more so than anybody else. So it's really important to practice self compassion. And it's one of my favorite activities is the loving kindness meditation, which is something that you can easily access by just Googling loving kindness meditation. There's all kinds of guided ones that are free on YouTube from between 3 minutes to 20 minutes, depending on how much time you have. But it's really this great practice that not only brings you happiness and joy, but also teaches you to have compassion for yourself and others. And really being able to recognize that none of us are perfect and that we're not motivated when we beat ourselves up. In fact, it's just going to lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more we beat ourselves up, the more we feel bad about ourselves, and the more likely we are to actually self-sabotage because we believe we don't deserve good things. So self-compassion is so important because self-compassion allows us to accept good things that happen to us and also allows us to take action so that those good things can happen.
Okay, so I don't know about you, but I feel so much better about this new year. After talking to Dr. Judy, I feel way more prepared and confident to take on my goals, and I hope you do too. For more information, you can head to drjudyho.com or pick up a copy of her book, Stop Self-Sabotage. Until next week, you can follow me at Meagan Lynn TV on social media. I'm so happy you're here, and I can't wait to take on this new year together.